and welcome to this war. I'm not really going to explain the sides, it's just that where Russia's goal was to occupy the Middle East because they have oil, like in Kuwait. Sudan and Libya wanted to join Russia. Greece wants to take Cyprus, and Morocco wants to take Western Sahara and Algeria. And some other people have just joined that, and these guys joined for revenge. So anyway, without further ado, let's get right into the video. Also, P.S. there will be 2 parts to this video. But anyway, let's get right in. So instantly Russia walks into the remnants of Ukraine and sadly knocks them out of the war as they are too strong. They also push heavily into Germany, as even though Germany is the number 1 in pretty much Europe, other than Russia's number 1 in the world, Germany's number 2, America's number 3. Also happening over here, we have the destruction of central England, as they can't really survive. We have Portugal and Morocco doing a joint front in Spain, and they start pushing back really far, until eventually Spain just decides to give up as they have no point in this war. However, Algeria, Egypt and Western Sahara will not give up, even though they are getting absolutely destroyed. Morocco starts an offensive, which goes pretty well, until it doesn't. Libya starts an offensive, so does Tunisia, and then they can't advance any further. Egypt, even though has the capabilities to destroy Sudan, but keep in mind it started off in 2018. But anyway, I know that Egypt could definitely destroy these countries, but with support from this gigantic empire, also North Korea has joined the war, I don't think that he's going to survive very long, Egypt. They eventually push Egypt pretty far, and then there's a stalemate as the Egyptians start to invest heavily in protecting the remaining lands, as Cairo is I'm pretty sure almost been captured. Meanwhile over here you don't want to know what happens. Cyprus, yeah. Syria falls, Iraq falls, they all fall. Meanwhile in the Balkans, Romania is absolutely obliterated along with the remaining of Kosovo and Albania. Serbia tries to hold them off, but manages barely to. But Romania at this point surrenders, and Slovakia is now on the front. Serbia is almost dead, and so is this Croatia. Meanwhile over here, Portugal pushes through France, and they're given an option to switch sides. You thought it was Italy. It's France. They sadly take that option. So now they get their old lands back, and they've just switched sides, which means it's very bad news for the rest of them. France takes over quite a lot of the Mediterranean. Malta is absolutely destroyed along with most parts. Italy is eventually destroyed. And we have a slow but certain push into Germany. Up north we have Norway and Sweden dying. Then Norway's given the option to switch sides, and they do so, causing an absolute problem up north. They recapture their capital Oslo and make it their new capital, even though it's still being occupied, and Sweden barely holds on. They do manage though to have another front and push back the Norwegians and Russians, but in other places it fails. And we have a slow but sure stop of Swedish advance. And we have the taking of an island. Meanwhile back in Africa we have Algeria being steamrolled. They get entirely taken over, their south gets entirely taken over, and we have the remaining red team pushing up, till eventually there is a stalemate and Algeria has secured their life. Western Sahara has also secured their life, as now they can't be invaded with heavily supplied troops. Cairo's on the brink of falling, and we have them, and we have the red team pushing towards Cairo, and also strengthening their front. They also start pushing in multiple areas until they reach the city of Alexandria and are instantly stopped by the remaining army. Down south, Serbia eventually thinks about surrendering, as they do surrender. And the Croatian puppet is eventually forced out of existence. And the Balkans are starting to fall over to the red team. Eventually we have the slow but certain advance into Germany again. And we have something happening. We have a naval invasion back into central England, and we have central England falling over to the red team once again. And with their newfound power since the Russian Empire sent equipment, they destroy Wales, they enter into Northumbria but manage to, not advance up north. They destroy the remnants of the United Kingdom and of Wessex, though the United Kingdom still holds on slightly. Scotland is navally invaded and sadly falls over to the hands of the Russians. However, Northumbria is still alive. How? Northern Ireland and Ireland are the same. They sadly fall over. And eventually the siege of Dublin happens. We have troops, all types of red team troops entering in. They surround the waters and make a naval invasion, as you see here. And eventually they capture Dublin, and Ireland has to do the sad thing of surrendering. Now there's only 2 countries remaining fighting in the British Isles, Northumbria and the United Kingdom. Iceland is invaded, and eventually Iceland is occupied. And finally, we have the biggest event happening, and that is the all-out invasion of Germany. Quite a lot of troops start invading Germany, and the tunnel between Germany and Britain is closed off, and some remaining troops which manage to escape in this area flee to Britain to fight for Britain and to get back to Germany. It is eventually secured that Germany will probably lose quite a lot of land, even though they did push back. And eventually all of Switzerland is surrounded by enemy forces. And eventually Russia is just like, I'm going to go and have a full push into Germany. And that's what they do. They have a full push into Germany and into the remaining parts of Poland. Denmark is navally destroyed. And Germany looks like they are in a very bad situation, as we had Frankfurt being captured earlier on, and now we have the remnants of Germany being destroyed and thinking about surrendering. This war instantly went from being the blue team to the red team. That is quite a lot of people and a lot of countries which are under the red team's rule. You could almost say that they're getting unstable. They'll probably do fine. Eventually, after a push into Germany, which almost captures the city of Berlin, most German people start thinking about surrendering, and it looks like the war's going to come to a close with a red team victory. But that's where something happens. Switzerland invites Germany and all blue team members to a meeting inside Bern. And here's exactly what they say. They say that they have allies and they have an idea of how the red team can be destroyed. And I'm going to reveal the letter that Germany sent Switzerland. They sent this. Dear Switzerland, we think that we're going to get in a war with Russia soon. Please, if you have any way to help us, can you please stop them? P.S. We know you have secret nukes. That's right, the most neutral country on the planet and Liechtenstein have nukes. You weren't expecting this, and you ain't gonna expect a special guest, which was in Bern. That's right, it was me. It was SP Gaming. I'm still alive. I went from in the United Kingdom to live in Switzerland, and we have been working on a secret project to make powerful nukes which destroy cities but don't give off nuclear radiation. It's basically a new nuke. And Switzerland has some allies which will turn the war around. And even though they hate Egypt, Israel joins. But we have also the countries of India, China, Japan, South Korea. Did I forget to mention that Gambia joins? These countries decide to also join, and so does South Sudan. And we have the turning point of the war, though we sadly do have a lot more casualties of countries, as South Sudan was not able to help Egypt in their battle, nor was these countries. Sorry guys, I just realised that I did something wrong. But anyway, nor does these countries, nor does Gambia. India gets pushed in. I know that Kashmir is heavily fortified, but we can say that they get a lot of advances into Kashmir. And the capital of New Delhi is threatened. China is absolutely destroyed. Poor China. But Russia thought they captured the capital, Beijing. They're wrong. They captured not the capital. They captured because the capital moved from Taiwan's capital to Shanghai. Wow. It's almost as if we've gone back in time, where China's capital was Shanghai. But enough of that. We have a lot of advances until the Chinese army stops the Russian advance. South Korea is, well, their capital's gone, and they get returned back to what North Korea did. Japan's Northern Ireland gets taken, but here comes the real turning point of the war. Rebellions. Rebellions for better government. Lots of rebellions. Rebellions in Turkey. Rebellions in Iran. Rebellions in occupied lands even. Ireland and Northern Ireland and Scotland rebel. So do Wales. Denmark rebels. Ukraine rebels. Crimea rebels. A piece of Turkey rebels. Most of Iran rebels. A lot of places in the Russia rebel. A lot, and I mean a lot of places. These are just a few of them. There's hundreds of thousands. Literally, there are hundreds of thousands of rebellions all across the Russian Empire. And here's where everything goes wrong. But with their last might, they capture Cairo, they capture Stockholm, and that's about it. They also capture New Delhi. But then here comes the absolute destruction of everything. Israel enters in, along with Egypt, entering back into their old lands, and with support from Switzerland, even though they are neutral and could not join alliances, they manage to push back pretty hard. But not down south, as Sudan's got that place heavily fortified. We also have rebels in Gambia and a lot of countries. We have rebellions in Tunisia, we have rebellions in Morocco. In every country, there is a freaking rebellion. And at this point, it's just the collapse of everything. Morocco does not surrender, though they do get captured. A rebellion takes over the capital of Portugal, and they surrender. There are millions of rebellions across France. And eventually, France decides to do something. Oh my gosh, they switch sides! Everyone, they switch sides! Eventually, a lot of troops just suddenly switch sides in a lot of occupied places. And we have the liberation of most parts of Germany other than the south, as the Balkans is a very heavy place, full of troops. Most of the capitals of the African nations are already under rebellion control, so they surrender. Libya still fights on until their entire coastline is taken, and Egypt makes a huge push through the desert, and they surrender, leaving Sudan to occupy some lands and take advantage of those lands and start their own advance into Libya. Now, with all of this falling, a bunch of troops basically just decide to switch sides. And we can't go to everywhere at once, so we're just going to focus on the fall of Africa. As with Algeria and Western Sahara's power back and most of these countries very weak, a lot of rebellions happen till eventually Mali surrenders, Senegal surrenders, Mauritania surrenders, and we have the liberation of Africa. Eventually it's just Sudan and Eritrea left in Africa to fight for themselves, as they get left alone by the Russian Empire, which is focused on destroying their own rebels. We have the liberation of Iceland, of north of England, and we have the collapsing of a lot of fronts, and by a lot I mean a lot of fronts. Germany sends an ultimatum to most people, saying that they can now switch sides if they would like to, and Norway does exactly that, as they don't want to die. They just wanted to get out of this war alive, and eventually we have the pushing from China into China, funnily enough. We have the leaving of most Russian troops to save themselves from the absolute destruction of this 5-year straight war with no breaks, not even a Christmas one. Whereas North Korea firing off their nukes, but they miss South Korea and Japan, and eventually North Korea surrenders. Well, it is right there and then when most people in the alliance decide, I don't want to be a part of this alliance. Iran just joins and switches sides, which means that the entire Middle Eastern front collapses. Pakistan's just like, you will never touch me, I'm invincible. Yeah, well, they regret saying that their capital gets taken, and Pakistan asks India if they could sue for peace. India says fine, but on one condition: ever work for the wrong side again, and then they have to pay war reparations and a bunch of other contract stuff. So they leave the war. And there is the creation of the Turkish Republic, the Second Turkish Republic, to be exact. We have the falling of most puppet states, and Russia is eventually left with little to no fronts. And at the start of the war, Poland told Germany to never give up, and look now. I don't think they'll be giving up now. They're winning. Eventually, most of the Balkans get seized back, and they have an offer for Bulgaria and Greece, which is that they leave the war and sue for peace, and they take minimal land. So they accept that ultimatum, and now we have pretty much the death of most countries. We have the fall of Sudan, starting with a bunch of rebels inside their own country for Egypt, and Eritrea instantly gets steamrolled. And then Ethiopia's promised coastline by Eritrea, well, by Egypt when they invaded Eritrea. And now we have a liberated Africa and only one enemy on the front line: the Russian Empire. Germany pushes back, And we have at this point the collapse of every front for Russia. Every single front line just instantly collapses for Russia as the entire country starts to collapse. Most of the people rebel. Eventually, Siberia gets independence. Well, rebels actually. And we have pretty much the death of Russia as in every front again. They can't just fight the entire thing. The Caspian and Black Sea falls. Every single front line gets taken. St. Petersburg gets captured. Russian morale is low. And finally, after one of the longest wars in history, it is coming to an end. And with a huge push, they capture Moscow. And after that, Russia just starts to collapse even more. Eventually, Russia is just forced to Siberian lands, and they have to do what they call as their secret weapon. They launch one of the biggest bombs in two places, Berlin and Frankfurt. They get demolished to the ground. In response, Switzerland, Germany and the Blue Team destroy a lot of important and major cities which remain, which aren't very many. And eventually Russia collapses, Siberia gets its independence, and the new Republic of Russia appears here. And that, my friends, was the end of the war. We will see the peace treaty in the next episode. I would like to thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, all the stuff, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye!